Maggie, I think we're live now.
Are we live? Hello, everyone.
Just looking at this mirror, I should shave my head. You can see a little bit of the too much of the salt and not enough of the pepper, I think, at the moment.
No.
All right, so
Right.
our chat is ready to go.
Ready
So
to
we've
go.
got our
I've
big
just put
debate.
out the welcome to Aussie Ed, and I'm just about to tweet out our first.
We're live now.
Invite people on. How good is that? That was from Graham Andre. Thank you, Graham. Please don't vote me off. Be kind.
You can see a little bit of the too much of the salt and not enough of the pepper, I think, at the moment.
No.
What's that big delay? Can you hear a big delay there? So
Yeah, I can. Have you got the window open elsewhere? Yet. And I'm just about to tweet out our first.
Oh, that's my fault. Oh.
Yeah, I thought. Do you have it open in another window?
I've got it back. I've got it live on as well. Because can you hear me now?
So there is a little bit of a delay, we've realised, but let's get us started. We're asking everyone on Twitter to introduce themselves and give us a word to describe standardised tests. So,
all right,
we'll start sharing what adjectives people have.
So for the logic of this to a pretty busy chat. So Maggie and I will have a little bit of a chat at the tweets as they come up. Obviously, looking at standardised testing, so it could be a little bit controversial. You might hear a few devices beeping. I've got my laptop and two other devices going. So Maggie's just sent out that describe standardised testing, and we'll see how it goes from there.
That's it.
This should be fun.
Cool. Graham Andre, one word. I believe everybody will get sick of my laugh already, but one word, pa. That's a good one. So if you are listening to us in the background while tweeting on Aussie Ed, could just say hello and let us know that you are listening as well.
Yeah. I can see Graham Andre did another one. Can we vote people off? It's only you and I. Can we vote people off? I'm an Aussie Ed. Get me out of here.
We'll start getting we'll start getting all Survivor on each other now.
That's it. So if you are watching this though, make sure you're tweeting as well. Maggie and I will be tweeting. Good to see Andrew Redfern, our good friend from ReadyTech, just jumped on. Claire Canane as well. I can see Alfinity already. That's beautiful.
Yep, there's a lot. We're already starting to get words to describe. Politicized.
Oh, Alice Elwell.
Alice Elwell. So we apologise if we're saying names wrong.
Yeah.
Claire is unsure. So let's see if she will make a decision by the end of the chat. And we've got another word here, data. That's probably the word I would use.
Hey, can I jump back for a moment here, Maggie? Looking at what Alice wrote, this is what I was talking about a little bit last week, not particularly about standardised testing, but Alice, I'm glad you said politicised because it quite disturbed me. At the ending of our chat last week, the Australian curriculum review had just come out a few days earlier, and I turned on my TV and I saw a whole range of debate on Sky News talking about the review, and they had a whole panel of experts discussing this big curriculum review. Not one person on this expert panel was from an educational background. Every single person, other than the journalist who was hosting the show, was from a political background. And I think, to me, that's the real danger in standardised testing, is when it does become politicised. So I think you've hit the nail right on the head there, Alice. So I could not agree more with you.
Yeah, and that's a point I have considered and put thoughts on whether I should join politics. I know talking is something I love to do. So if anybody wants to support me there, please shout that out as well after you've heard me for the next hour. If you think I have what it takes, or if you think I should stick to teaching, also welcome that opinion as well. Because that's what we would need. We need some teachers in politics who really understand what it's all about.
That's it, isn't it? That's the old saying. Don't understand my job until you walked a mile in my shoes.
Very correct. And, there's a lot of politicians out there. They're making decisions before this does go all political, but they do. They make a lot of decisions on a lot of different areas, and some of them don't have quite the experience. But today, it's just about education. It's just about standardised tests that our poor students do have to go through because of government, really. Some of it is helpful, and we'll get to sharing about there. Congratulations to those of you who are multitasking. Brett and I are definitely put to the test here with our multitasking, having to speak and tweet at the same time. Thank you, Hannah. My first
I've just tweeted that.
All right, and I think we've got our first. I'll tweet up. Our first question will come up in about 3 more minutes. I'll send out the first warning tweet. So 2 minutes to the first question. And there is an image to look out for. Yes, Sculptures by the Sea did start this weekend, and I've got a picture that I loved from last year. Misappropriated from Steve Box, the whole box and dice in Brisbane. Definitely would agree with you there.
Well, what did he say there?
Misappropriated.
Oh, misappropriated, right. I get you.
What else have we got here? People are saying we're being limiting. It's almost like we're putting everybody to a standardised test, limiting them to 1 word. We don't mean to do that. If you want to say more than 1 word, please go for it.
Hannah Piper, I'm with you. It has its place when it's used appropriately. The reason why Maggie and I are the 2 people who decided to be on here today is that we do have slightly differing views, not too far apart, not worlds apart, but I'm a little bit more sympathetic to standardised testing when it's used for the right purpose. So, Hannah, I'm with you. When it's used appropriately, I think it has a very, very powerful effect. It's when the purpose is in question, then I think the whole test becomes in question. So, thanks for that, Hannah.
Yeah, I can't help but just sympathise with the students on this one. I've taught NAPLAN grades for a few years now, and these poor kids, seeing them go through that stress and anxiety, and the results were given back just last month, months after the test was taken. These poor kids telling me that their parents were unhappy with them because they didn't get good marks.
I must admit, this year in the NAPLAN test, you'll probably be able to see how well we've come over the time at multitasking, because we've got a few devices happening here and talking at the same time. So 4 things, very hard for an old prop forward to be able to do at once. But I'm with you, Maggie. One of the most difficult things I ever had to witness in my life as a teacher was this year. I had one of my girls during NAPLAN, one of the brightest girls I have taught this year, probably one of the brightest girls I've ever taught, and just her inert pressure, the pressure that she had put on herself to perform, she felt towards the ending of the writing test that she just had not delivered what she personally felt was her best. And she was right the whole test, she was fine. As it came up to hand over that test and say time up, she just exploded. She just had tears coming from everywhere. The pressure just got to her, and I just think that is an unrealistic and unhealthy amount of stress and pressure that an 11-year-old girl or anyone should be under.
That's right, and they put it on themselves, don't they?
That's it.
Okay, first question, let's go. Let's have a look. What standardised tests do take place in your school around the world? Brendan Jones, the crystal meth of education. Wow, great figurative language there. It's going in my favour because I am definitely against standardised testing. I'd love there to be another way that we could really see what schools can do or kids can do. So thank you, Brendan Jones, for that.
I'm assuming that I'm going to be in the silent majority, being sympathetic.
You can also be the middle ground as well, Brett.
Yeah. In fairness to myself, I do think I am in the middle of this argument. I'm not extreme on either side, but I do think there is a place for it when it's used for the right purpose. I think, like I said earlier, its purpose is the guidance for its success or lack thereof.
That's right. I just we have a first time at Aussie Ed. Welcome to Ben. Don't know if he's on the Hangout as if he's listening to the Hangout as well. But Ben, I was lucky to meet at Google Teacher Academy, and we constantly made the joke about the whole what situation. And here we are, Brett, you and I, on a Google Hangout, talking politics. What?
Talking politics. What?
What?
You know who would be a fan of you talking
there,
politics?
guys. That's definitely a word, a movie to look out for.
I was just going to say that you know who will be a big fan of you talking about politics and just having your aspirations there? Claire Amos, who we also met at the Google Teacher Academy, is one person from New Zealand. If you don't follow, you need to follow her, Claire Amos, someone who has very, very strong views, very, very well spoken, and very, very well read and well researched too. So if you don't follow Claire Amos, you need to make sure you're doing that.
Yeah, great advocate for change there as well. I was fortunate to be with her group. So let's see, what tests are we doing in schools? NAPLAN is definitely one that is being repeated over and over, and definitely been in the news the last week with $25 million being poured into that so that it can go online. And they're making an attempt to change the questions to suit kids' needs. That is, I guess, a positive in the sense, but it's still the situation. It's still that formal testing that students have to sit in, and I did blog about that this week. The RE test for those in Catholic schools.
There's a lot of PATs, PAT test. A lot of the PAT test seems to be even across the ditch. I'm looking at a few people from New Zealand. Tana, from way up north in New Zealand. Tana, I'm a big fan of Tana. She's talking here about the PAT test. So obviously across the ditch and in Australia as well.
Yeah. I can see the PATs as well coming up. Torch is another one. I've heard of that one. I'm not familiar.
Torch, it's a comprehension test. I believe I've used Torch a few times in the past. You know, I think that's one test that definitely has its limitations. It's a bit of a comprehension task, like a closed passage, Maggie, where children read and they've got to put in the correct the correct term, sentence.
Actually, I did experience that with a class about 6 years ago, and I had a student there with quite high needs. Poor thing could not do it. I had to sit the whole class down to do that test, and I do remember him sitting there, and when I asked him, "Are you okay? What's happening?" he was quite angry and upset because he just said, "I can't do this." And that was all he would tell me. So again, supporting my view of what these standardised tests can do to our students.
I've got to say, have you seen Kathy Gennari's post a few seconds ago? Torture.
Definitely a good comment. So Graham from the UK has just shared that in the UK they have the SATs and a baseline assessment phonics for year 1. So and they do SAT test for year 2 to 6. I have a question. If there's anyone from the US, how does that compare to your SATs? Forgive me for not being completely in the know, but this is what I'm here. I'm here to learn as well as continue and encourage everybody else's learning.
I can see we've got a few people coming over from over the world. So Eva Hartel, I can see you just popped on there. I was talking to Eva earlier this week, and I must say that this particular topic has been one that seems to have struck a chord with a lot of people. It's probably been our topic that's had the most pre-chat, and Eva over here from Sweden was conversing with me all during the week in the lead up to this. So Eva's just logged on, so welcome, Eva. It's good to have you here.
Yeah. I love the comedy. Comedy's always welcome. Bianca has just shared, I became a teacher so I could help kids pass the standardized tests. Said no teacher ever. Thank you, Bianca. Yeah, definitely the comics, they're in the newspaper, they're in the magazines everywhere, but clearly then there's a lot of truth to those and they're just not getting through to our governments. They're still comparing countries and, you know, where does our country measure against the world because they're using PISA and all sorts of national assessment.
All right, so I'm just going to send out a little tweet here. My internet's
Yeah, it is very challenging. Having to read and talk about it while also tweeting is definitely the challenge here, isn't it, Brett?
My tweeting is slowing down, just quietly.
Yeah, my Twitter things are not as. I actually am enjoying being given the opportunity to read and talk about the tweets. But yeah, the only downside is that my tweeting has slowed down.
That's it.
So, but there's definitely our Aussie team is on board. We have Kay Hollis at Hobson K, Kimberly Sutton at Teach Miss Sutton, Nick Briley at Miss Sizer. Sorry, Nick, if I've said that wrong. Alfina's a regular offender, Geeky Oz teacher.
And worth pointing out that Alfina is actually going to be hosting next week's chat while you mention her name.
Oh, there you go. So great. And yeah, a lot of regular people here that are great to see the sessions going on. There are only about 5 questions tonight. The next one does have 2 parts, so we'll get started on the next question. Question 3. No, question 2.
You know what? Can I just spot it here? Bronwyn Thompson's actually put out a bit of a strange tweet here. She's tagged Kimmy Sutton in here, but she says she sees teachers at her school doing a beep test with kids as a PE lesson. Do you know what? That's a fair correlation. It's
another example.
It's another example of a standardised test. There are lots of fitness tests that we do. We never question the standardisation of. Because of BMI and stuff like that, we do. So it's almost like pick and choose sometimes, isn't it? Which ones we are willing to accept and which ones we balk at straight away. That's a good point, Bronwyn. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and you know that is a really good point because this could go into. We look at how much pressure kids are put on with just standardised tests, but if we look at other standardisations in life, I can't help but think about things like your BMI, your body mass index, and how much you're supposed to weigh compared to.
Let's not bring up BMI too much.
Think about it. Everybody's body is different, and that's another thing that does need to be considered when kids are growing, and they all grow differently. And if we're sticking to these small numbers and saying this is healthy and this is not, that's another area of stress that can cause to kids, and it's all standardised numbers that are being given out. Okay, so let's go. Next question. Purpose of standardised tests. And Rob also actually already kind of answered this because he said the results are too slow to be useful in class, which is so true. As I said before, these students sat these tests in May, and 3-4 months later, May, June, July, August, 4 months later, September, they get their results back, and they fail to realise what they have achieved in those 4 months of learning.
Look, to be honest with you, you mentioned earlier today about that $25 million spent on our NAPLAN, and for our international sort of visitors, NAPLAN is our Australia's national standard assessment. Happens in Year 3, Year 5, Year 7, Year 9, and measures writing, reading, literacy skills, numeracy skills, the same sort of thing that I suppose all of those national tests do that many countries are involved in. But the real crux is, for me, the killer of NAPLAN is the length of time it takes to get the results. By the time you get the data, and how many times do we hear about how important the data is to know about our children? By the time we get the data, then the data is already out of date. For those children have moved on. Sometimes, like you said, so many months later. I think investing money, and I know $25 million is a lot, but when you look at a national budget, $25 million is a drop in the ocean of an entire nation's budget. $25 million to have an online testing system that will give almost instantaneous, almost immediate feedback, I think is money very, very well spent. I think that actually gives a little bit more validation. I still don't like high-stakes testing. And I think there needs to be a difference between our general collective understanding of high-stakes testing and standardised testing. They're two different things. But I'm not a big fan of high-stakes testing, especially with the younger children. But I do think if the NAPLAN and those assessments globally that are similar to that, if we had instantaneous feedback from them, they would be all that much more purposeful.
That's right. And
I get down
Andrew
off my high
Edson
horse.
actually did state that if with hopefully with this money that's going into it and the or maybe the online version will lead to more instant feedback. So, and Kate Swan has also pointed that out for us as well. So thanks, Kate, for that. So we'll all find out in 2016, I guess, if that has gone that way, and it'll be here before we know it. Can you believe we're going to be in November next weekend? So answers to question 2, the purpose of standardized testing. Somebody actually answered it with a good question. It depends who you ask. It does depend who you ask. Like there's funding that makes that choice, which was tweeted by someone. The feed is moving very quickly, so I am sorry if I don't mention your name. Let's see, what else have we got here? Again, to track progress, somebody did point out a negative here. So on my side, just how it leads to labelling and it leads to sectioning kids in different areas, and that again can have negative effects.
Look, do you know what? Talking about the negative effects and the stress, during the week I was talking to, I've forgotten the actual tag, the gorilla people. What's the gorilla one? Let me quickly find it. But they were talking about.
She said that the exclusion and labelling. That's the purpose that can lead to, which we will get into that as well.
But there are a number of studies that have come out showing negative impacts on on students' brains and the chemical interactions of the neurological impact of stressful examinations. And one clear link in one of these studies was the increase in youth suicide rate that occurs that was mapped and paired with the increase in high-stakes testing in South Korea. So as the increase in high-stakes testing in South Korea took off, supported by the government, there was a correlation in the youth suicide rate within that country. So I think we do play a dangerous game when we start talking about high-stakes testing.
That's right.
Guerrilla Learning Co. Thank you, Guerrilla Learning Co. There was that.
Steve has pointed out that a lot of the answers are more regarding NAPLAN. It's the data is given to people who Ben Gallagher noticed that it's data that's given to people who will do nothing effective with it. And yeah, some of our answers are only on NAPLAN. So if we can think, what else is the purpose of other standardized tests? The other ones we mentioned, like Porch and the BERTs, would be really good if everybody can have a second tweet and keep the conversation going. And Sue Yons has put out the question, how do schools use NAPLAN data? Well, we have the website, which I cannot think of it. Is it the My Schools website? Not the one.
My School website.
That's the one where it goes to the public. There's the other website that we can log into where we actually can get some lesson ideas that can help particular questions. But then I can't help but think, are we running the risk of then teaching to the test if we're using just those resources? And I find a lot of them are worksheets, which I think we all have opinions about worksheets.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Kate Furlong, in the same sort of vein here, Maggie, has mentioned a controversial term, the Common Core. Now, a lot of our American friends on the East Coast will be just about waking up.
Yes.
And I think it's just about to turn 6 o'clock over in the East Coast. So as some of them start to jump on Aussie Air, we might ask a little bit more from the Americans' understanding of Common Core, because that is a very controversial issue that's coming out of the States and guiding a lot of their national testing and guiding a lot of their standardization. A lot of that stemmed, from my understanding and from my reading in the past, from the success or perceived success of George W. Bush and his initiatives in Texas when he was a governor of Texas. He introduced high-stakes testing, and he paired school funding to the performance in these tests. Now, in Australia, we do have some pairing in that schools that are identified as high-risk schools, schools that need a little bit of extra attention, get additional funding. In Texas during this time, from my understanding, and if any Texans jump on, please correct me, but what they did was they virtually punished the schools and punished the areas that performed poorly, which prompted people to teach towards the test, turn their eyes away from the other things that are so important, the arts and sport and drama and all that sort of stuff, and completely focus on the test and focus on perceived academic improvement in standardized test performances. And what happened was suddenly, overnight, within a few years, you see all these schools that were low achieving schools go boom, 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 and their test scores were getting higher and higher, and they called it the Texas Miracle because, wow, this genius idea that was able to completely change Texas's performance in these national exams or these state-based exams. But the effects of that were huge. Children were exhibiting massive signs of stress. They targeted, I don't think they call it kindergarten or prep, but I remember watching a documentary and having these 5-year-olds just sitting there bawling, saying the tests are getting harder and harder every year. It was very, very confronting. And I don't think that a punishment-based system is the way to improve your education.
Well, that's right. We'll look at, I mean, we could even go back to old teaching methods and theories about the positive behaviour and how to encourage positive results is through positive behaviour, rewards, as opposed to punishment.
It's like saying you make your horse run faster by hitting your horse. Like it has a short-term effect. Yeah, we've all seen jockeys get out and whip the horse, and yet the horse makes
done in the last couple of 100 metres.
But you can't whip it for the whole race because what will happen is the horse will kick you off.
Times they can hit the horse.
You can't whip the horse the whole race. You can't have that prodding effect the whole time through someone's education system, because if you do, something's going to break.
That's it. My tech, we've got Grill. Welcome, Grill. Haven't noticed you on our Aussie chat before, so welcome. She's also pointed with show me a standardized student. But there was an actual. She did say something before that stuck out, and I can't remember it. Brett was talking. I waited and I lost it. So thank you for your contributions. Oh dear, this is tough, guys. So for the support, some people have been saying you're doing well, so we are very appreciative. If this is helping people follow the chat more, then maybe this could be the new way, and hopefully we'll get better as the chats go on. So sorry for the Aussie team. I've just nominated this as a regular thing.
This is tough. This is a tough gig.
This is okay. So we're about to go 2 parts to question 3. So we'll start with people. It comes off well from the what is the purpose of standardized test. So let's look at some positive effects of standardized testing. So looking at all tests, not just NAPLAN, looking at our PAT test, our BERT, our Torch, the SATs that Graham Andre mentioned in the UK, and when our USA people get online to suggest. So I'll put the image in, question 3.1. So what are the positive effects of standardized testing? So, and this is not just NAPLAN, guys, it is all forms of standardized tests that take place in schools. Sometimes they can be helpful. Oops, did I just go on the other side there?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Whoops.
It's
hard. We're trying to listen to each other, Brett, and keep our conversation going while also trying to engage with people from all over Australia and the world.
The world, my friend, my world.
That's it. And thank you to those who are joining in and who are listening. I hope you're listening and not just watching.
Yes, if you're one of the lurkers, make sure you jump on, please. We love lurkers. We love everyone who comes to Aussie Ed, but we are about collaboration. So if you're watching, don't be afraid. Jump on. Just use the hashtag Aussie Ed. Jump on. Say your view, and hopefully you might find there's a different level of interaction when you do that.
Did I tweet? I did tweet question 3.1. Let's see. Positive
3.1.
effects. 3.1 positive effects. I'm yet to see someone answer this question. Oh, here we go.
Guerrilla learning. They're limited, but no one says there should be only one way to assess.
That's right, and you do need multiple ways to assess, and that's why the national tests that do take place and the way they, then go on to judge a school and even countries based on these tests. It's not enough valid data to really show what students, what schools, and what teachers are really capable of.
Rob the plebeian. Good to see
Anna.
you, brother.
Anna has just pointed out it does give a starting point. And it can. There is that positive. At the beginning of the year, if you give kids the same test, you can then see, okay, well, this is one area where this person can do this and can't do this, but let's try another situation, not just in the form of a standardized test. A very strong no from Mark Yeats. None. There is none, but money could be spent elsewhere. His opinion there, so thank you. Very strong opinions. Good to see. Thank you, sir, and the YouTube chat is helping you follow your first Aussie Ed, so really glad that it is helping. I have received feedback that sometimes the Aussie Ed chat does tend to move really quick, and so I guess having us talk and read out some of the tweets, and these are no means like the tweets that we think are the better ones or the worst ones, they're just the ones that stick out to us at the top of our reading, aren't they, Brett?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Do you know what? I want to give a shout out here to Andrea Stringer. Andrea, we see her a lot on Twitter. She's a very knowledgeable person here, and she said I question, do we use our regular data and assessments to help our students plan a better outcome, or to help our assessments to plan a better outcome for our students? Do you know what? I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what technique you're using. If you're using a technique that at the end of it helps the kids learn better, if that's your purpose, if your purpose is I'm doing this task so that I can be a better teacher and I can reach a child better, then that is purposeful and that will have a positive impact on that child. And I'm with you on that, Andrea. I suppose the big question is, though, I'm going to jump on your side. I'm going to jump the fence and jump with you here, Maggie. The big question here is, what's the purpose? If you're just blindly going through something just because it's on a list, a checklist of jobs that you have to do at the beginning, or a mandated thing from the government that you're working under, then what purpose are you seeing in that?
That's it. Right. And we struggle with this we try to give kids the practice tests. Some of us do. I mean, I'm guilty of it, to prepare them for the situation. And some of us are doing it because we have to do it. So Nick has just said, yeah, it does give comparative data, and it's really good to see students, basic skills in English and maths, and then you can see growth as well. You hope you can see growth over the years. So that is a positive thing, and then students can, if you are sharing that those results to students, which I would say is extremely important, they can then see how they've improved. A quote that I saw posted before the chat was, don't try to be better than every other person in this classroom or in this situation. Just try to be better than the person you were yesterday, which stands for a range of things, doesn't it, Brett?
That's it. That's it. Can I pick up on something you said, and I think this is crucial. The feedback element. When you said you believe that you should tell the children their results, I'm a very, very strong believer in that too. I think the more feedback you can give a child about their performance, the better.
That's it.
And the quicker you can do that, the better. And that's why I'm all for going along the line of online testing, because it speeds up the rate of feedback.
That's right. So here's second part to question 2, and I know we will get a lot of responses here. What are the negative effects of standardized testing? So let them rip, everyone. Just having a look at what we're doing, Brett, we did advertise this as a debate, and it seems if we were being tested on how our debating skills are, we have definitely but we need to keep agreeing with each other at the same time.
I think we have a little bit of common ground here. I think as long as I think we may have differing views on the tools, but I think our common ground is, and this should be the case for all educators. If our goal, if our purpose is to do what is best for the children, then that's the right thing to do.
Hmm. And that's who we're there for. That's what we're there for. And this is what the government needs to realise, is that these kids are our future leaders. You just hope that these kids remember when they become adults, okay, this was not a good situation for me. What can I do to change it? So any 10, 12-year-olds who hope to be Prime Minister one day, let's see what they can do. I've just got, and this is really good that David McCaw has pointed out, in the case of NAPLAN, the negative effects, I'm assuming, is that you only get a snapshot of what the students can achieve on that day. You have no idea the night's sleep that child has had. You have no idea what they've gone through in the past 24 hours. My niece had to sit her plan the day after moving house. So the poor thing was exhausted. And when I realised, I said, oh my gosh, doing nothing the day after moving house, that's never an ideal situation. And that's only a minor situation. There's a lot of other situations that kids can go through the night before having to sit the test.
Do you know, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to EduTweet Oz. I can see David Adams has taken over the account this week.
Yes, also known as Rebel Teacher.
A Rebel Teacher. Well done, Rebel Teacher. Love your work. But he's mentioned in 3.1, question 3.1, one of the positives is the ability to map learning. And I think that counteracts that argument of the children maybe having a one day, a bad day. If you are mapping learning over a long period of time, now in Australia's case, we've had NAPLAN here for a long period of time. If we can map certain strengths and for lack of a better word, deficiencies of one particular school or a cohort of children, surely that then gives us the ability to see that data and go, do you know what? Here's an area we should target and help these children develop. So I like that mapping over a long period of time. That's one of the benefits of doing one of those big, long-running standardised sort of testings. I disagree with high-stakes testing, but that is one benefit of long-term standardised tests. And I want to, again, maybe we need to almost clarify high stakes and separate that. But thank you very much, Rebel Teacher, David Adams.
Very good. Okay, so unnecessary pressure on students is from Michelle Lloyd. Very low. It gives parents a false impression of student abilities, from Anna Gripton. Thank you, Anna. About the negative effects. It evaluates just on that one day, is definitely being repeated by a few people. And it doesn't test out of the box thinking. And who is really, if we think long term and who is successful in life, like who are our successful entrepreneurs and who are, I mean, really, you know, guess winning the test in life, but sometimes this could be seen that way, are those that are thinking outside of the box, those that are creating new inventions that are helping people today. I mean, that's, if you're able to create these great inventions, I mean, the guys who created Google, for example, yeah.
Well, what was their story? You tell their story, because that was a completely different type of educational system.
That's it. The two guys, their names have gone from my mind, so please tweet them if people are listening. They were Montessori educated students. So from what I understand, Montessori is where it's very student-led, and students make the decision on what they're ready to learn when they're ready to learn it. And now they've gone on to create, you know, something that people have made jokes about, Skynet, and how it's going to take over the world one day.
Oh, I can't type and talk at the same time. Sorry, mate.
It's hard. It is hard, and yeah. So thank you to all who are both listening and tweeting and still keeping the conversation going. Even if you are just listening and reading along, hopefully you're still getting some great learning, and feel free to just drop a little tweet here and there to say what you have taken on. And I've almost forgot our next question. Question 4. This is a big question. What if, just think, what if there were no standardized tests? None at all. What would the effects of that be? That's coming through. What would the effects of no standardised tests be? Let's have a look. Let's see what people's thoughts are. Yeah, would we still be able to measure our students' abilities? I mean, I know I've been able to without using a standardised test. Observation and anecdotal notes are very effective. Taking photos and even, presenting learning that way, or just having a student talk about their learning themselves. And also a new thing is blogging. Question 4, okay, Finland. It's appropriate to mention Finland now. Educate us. What's happening in Finland? Jane Hunter. I don't know if she's listening along, but I will definitely say please do to her tweet. How do Finland rank? I would take that they don't.
Finland, Finland I think a lot of the Scandinavian countries have a very different approach to some of the rest of the world. My understanding is their versions of their leaving certificates, their HSC or SATs, whatever you call it, the real high-stakes testing at the ending, they can bring their laptops, they can bring their devices, and they're challenged to think rather than perform different tests. I suppose it's a different style of standardized test, although I am no expert with even in the slightest on that, but that's my understanding. But I don't know how that feeds back down through the rest of the years within children's education. I don't know if that same philosophy applies or if just that type of test comes in at the ending of our education. So let's see if someone else knows the answer to that and can tweet along. I just want to say, Anna, do think, educate. It's got this beautiful John Lennon quote. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me that I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. Good old John Lennon.
And that is true. And if anyone is familiar with hack schooling, I'll see if I could quickly find that YouTube. Hack schooling, a young kid there talking about what he wants to be when he grows up, and he wants to be happy. He just wants to do what makes him happy, and that's why he's taken the homeschooling approach of hack schooling, which sounds like a lot of fun. And some people have even said that in their responses, that yeah, school would be a lot more fun. I'm sure we're all creating great fun environments for our students, but just that added fun, because there wouldn't be that stress of having to worry about these standardized tests and collecting data and whatnot. So I'll tweet out that hack schooling video for people to watch afterwards before you go to bed, maybe some light night listening. Or if you're just getting up and you're still enjoying your coffee after listening to us.
That's right. Your time zone's in effect here.
You could definitely have a watch. So I'll just, as we're experiencing, it is very, very much a challenge to be tweeting and chatting.
So tweeting, Googling, and talking at the same time. Then you're
I can share it.
It's very hard to keep a strain of the sentence at the same time.
That's it.
Break for a second. I'll give you a break for a few seconds here. I've got two that I'd like to mention here. Margaret Stelmach is an answer to number 4. No more teaching to a test. Students can reflect on their learning through e-portfolios and blogs. So it was like a practical response to your question. But Jane Hunter's come back and said in Finland there's no tests. They have great teachers, excellent students, and the profession of education is highly revered. So no tests from Jane Hunter. Wow. I'd love to see how reporting to parents and all that sort of stuff works there. I don't know enough about that. Might have to look into that. So if there's anyone here can help out with that, feel free to tweet a link.
Well, to be honest, I sometimes wish I could report to parents without A to E grading. I mean, and that's what some of this standardized testing in classes can lead to. It's just, which pigeonhole do we fit these kids in? You have 5 boxes to choose from, and I mean, I know I have students that I almost think it's unfair to put them into these boxes, this A to E grading. So I really wish I could just write, a page about each of them. So I know that would be sometimes more work for us, but there might be people that disagree. But still be able to report back to parents of what they can and cannot do. It's not a...
You there, Maggie?
entrance exams and their own ways of accepting people. But if we had, say, online e-portfolios, why couldn't a university just have a look at their learning and say, okay, what has this person achieved with their education at school? Project-based learning could be pushed more.
Sorry?
Sorry, I'm reading tweets. Project-based learning could be pushed more. We have.
Just coming back to that Finnish education, Kate Swan's just retweeted. In Finnish education, they have only one standardised test throughout their educational life. It's our equivalent of a HSC, or I think in England, in the UK, they call it Ofsted, I think. I'm not sure. But that's their very final exam, and they use that purely as an entry for tertiary education. So that's it.
There you go. And I have to say, I have to acknowledge that, yes, the HSC has changed in that 50%, I don't know how long this has been the case, but 50% of a person's HSC grade is also the work that they do in class as well, not just what they've been doing over this last couple of weeks. I think there's still 2 or 3 weeks left of HSC exams.
That's right. Right in the middle. A big shout out to all the kids who are suffering.
I thought it was a very appropriate time to be having this discussion as well. Okay, where are we up to?
Margaret's not much again. Can I just shout out to you? What about having an audience, an adequate audience for projects so children can feedback? This is one of my big passions, and maybe you would know, and you would have seen me speak about the role of a digital audience. I'm a big believer in the coming paradigm as we sort of shift away. And hello, shift paradigm. Sorry for stealing your word here for a second. But if we shift paradigms and we look at moving away from our older model and coming towards, we've got that whole between paradigm sort of time at the moment, and we're looking at what our next paradigm of education will be. I'm a big advocate for embracing a digital audience, because I think the benefits of doing that will be so powerful. Personalised learning, having online tutors and connecting. And I read a quote the other day, and forgive me, I don't know who said it, but the illiterate people of tomorrow won't be the people who can't read and write. It'll be the people who can't connect and collaborate. So
that's it.
If we're looking at that, I don't know, how do you create a standardised testing for collaboration and creativity? I'm not sure it's there.
That's it. Well, I mean, and even in the blog or the open letter that I did write the other day, did point out even these these young entrepreneur programs where kids can share their creations, and there are competitions that way. And Brett, you and I did have a conversation the other day of what if there was another standardized test. Well, it wouldn't be called a standardized test, but it was just a creation thing where students just created something and they would compete against, and it would all came down to people voting and the consumers thinking, I could use this product would help my life in this way, because that is what defines success in the real world. Those who are creating websites.
A little reality into the classroom too.
That's it. Why not? It's preparing them for life early. That's what I like to do. I like to prepare my kids for life, not just for high school and university.
No.
I think I've just answered my first question for the night. I'm through there. We're up to our last question.
That's gone fast.
This actually goes in beautifully. Yeah, Brett, it's already 9:20. This goes in beautifully to what we've just been discussing and what people have already started touching on. So what could alternatives to standardised tests be? The final question of the night. So this is where we can, we've already seen things about e-portfolios and like what Brett and I spoke about, having another sort of more competition in the sense where the consumer chooses the winner and it's not just based on, a set of guidelines.
That's it. I might just...
Unemployed status. Oh, what would the statisticians of the world do if we had no standardised tests? These poor blokes. So thank you so much. It is great to see some new people. It's great to see our regular people coming along. And please give us as much feedback as you can about the listening and typing experience. Definitely has been a challenge for Brett and myself, but I think we have gotten better. Not as not as debative as we thought we would be, but definitely it's been fun being able to talk about the tweets out loud and have people listen.
I'm dreading watching this back and seeing what we look like, though, I must admit.
I don't want to do that. I might listen to it and, have the tweet deck or the tweet beam going. Actually, I might just, for those that are new to Twitter or new to our chat, and if you're having trouble following the chat using the regular Twitter site, two great ones that I use are TweetDeck and TweetBeam, where you can, TweetDeck you can have a number of hashtags on your screen, and TweetBeam you can have just one particular hashtag going. So that's kind of what I have going on at the moment, so that I can, on two screens, I can see which tweets are sticking out. So apologies to go off topic there for a minute, but let's go back to, we've got video logs for alternatives to a standardised assessment. We would take observations, portfolios, there'd be happier teachers, happier students. Oh, doesn't that sound great?
I tell you, shout out here to Bianca, if you're following on the tweet feed about a minute ago, 53 ways to check for understanding, 53 efficient ways for understanding.
Can you retweet that? I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I'll throw that up now. Bianca, I know, has a very strong Celtic last name with lots of little accents on top of the letters that I'm not even going to pretend to be able to pronounce. I'm just going to say Bianca. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's probably Bianca or something. But that'll be worth a little link there. Edutopia link might be worth checking out a little bit later on.
Self-assessment and peer assessment. Peer assessment can be so effective. And what's great with peer assessment is that you're teaching kids. So this is Leonie Bennett. You're teaching students how to give constructive feedback in a respectful way, which is a skill that it's quite a challenge to sometimes have. To be able to tell someone this is where you need to work on this and this is where you need to improve, without hurting feelings. So definitely a skill that a lot of people don't always have, and a skill that kids could really develop should the alternative to standardised assessment be just peer assessment. But peer assessment has seemed to be very effective in my classroom.
I think it has a place. I don't think it's the be all and end all though. I think it's putting a lot of, like a lot of these ideas, they're all tools, and even standardised tests, they are a tool. If you're using them blindly and saying, okay, I'm going to do this test, and this tells me where my students are at, and that's it, you're accepting this information blindly, then I think you're a fool. What you need to do is, like you do, and I know you do this, Maggie, you grab this information, and how does that correlate with the other information that I know about this child? And does that fit right? And if it doesn't fit, you know what? You have the right to ask the question: is it a bum test? Test worth right? Did the child just go way better than I expected? If so, why? Have I been holding that child back? I think these questions are right. So they all have their place, but they have their place as a collective, I think.
That's it, and you need a range. It's like teaching methods. We don't all teach the exact same way. We try to use a range of resources and a range of ways to reach our students. I mean, Brett, you and I are doing that tonight. We're trying to find a range of ways to reach the Aussie Ed community.
Well, that was the whole purpose of this, wasn't it? A little bit of an experiment just to see.
That's it.
You mentioned our chats do go fast, and if I'm looking at here, I can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tweets within the same second just then. So obviously something is pumping along at the moment. But our chats do go fast, and so we're looking at broadening the way that we can connect with as many people. If you go on our www.aussieed.com, one of the blurbs there that describes our mission is that we want to not just connect with people, not just get past the barriers that prevent teachers from being able to connect, but to absolutely smash away those barriers so that we can connect, that we can collaborate, and we can inspire each other, and our children will be the beneficiaries of that connection, of that collaboration. And that's the whole purpose of being an educator, to make the difference to the children that are in our classrooms.
That's here, Brett.
Back on the soapbox yet again for about the 50th time tonight.
So yeah, and Kate Swan, I did mention it, but I didn't go into further detail. Self-assessment is very important. If students were to write their own reports, I loved giving my students an opportunity before parent-teacher interviews for their homework to write 2 positive things that they do, or 2 things that they're doing well, and 2 things that they think they need to work on. And it was amazing to see how many kids were able to pinpoint at least one thing that I was definitely going to talk about with their parents. It was also a really good starting point for the parent-teacher interview to have, well, this is what your child thinks, how they're going. So that self-assessment, definitely very important. And yeah, video blogs and blogs themselves, they're exercising the skills of reading and writing, as well as, you know, looking at their own that self-reflection there. I hope I am making sense. None of this is scripted or rehearsed, as you would have known tonight, everyone.
No, that's it. Tell you what, Althena Jackson, Geeky Oz teacher, just put up a very good quote with tertiary education. What about the standardised tests teaching uni students to pass, that they need to pass to get their degree? So what we're talking about here isn't just true for primary education, isn't just connected to final years of secondary education, but it is very, very true as well for tertiary education. I think these are big questions that our entire sector, that our entire profession need to be able to grapple with, because it's through this discussion that we gain a bit of a clearer collective understanding.
And that's so true. I mean, we look at some of our university results, and I mean, I'm happy to point to say that I don't think, I mean, I was not a distinction or a high distinction student when I was in uni, but I feel like as a teacher, I've been going all right, even though I may not have, you know, been the valedictorian of my graduating class. So that there it just shows the standardised assessment don't always give that true outlook or true, what's the word? Brett, help me out.
True analysis.
Abilities of what people can do.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Self-assessment, we said peer assessment before. Vanessa Heiser, self-assessment, of course. Well picked up there, Vanessa. Thank you very much for that.
Definitely.
Duncan McCarthy here. Looking at Duncan's as well.
Where's Duncan? No, I missed Duncan. I was just laughing at Tana saying, "You are, Brett, well done, you are multitasking like a woman."
Yes, Tana was picking on my lack of multitasking skills earlier today. I'm trying my very, very best. Reading.
And Claire has congratulated us on a great debate. Oh, look, it's 9:30. I have a bonus question.
Oh no! Bonus question, go. Duncan, you'll have to wait.
Bonus question: Have any opinions changed? Have any from this chat? Has your original opinion changed? I mean, I don't know if this is to give you a win here, Brett, but I mean, I was very much straight out. No, definitely no such thing. No way at all. No, standardized test is bad. But I have actually. It has been brought to my attention that there can be good things, but you know, I still look at what Finland are doing. So I might even be on the fence now.
Well, you've moved. You've shifted. I'll take a moral victory.
I've got a hand on my fence. I'm leaning on the fence. I'm not going to sit on it. I'll lean on it.
You're kidding yourself. You're in my camp now. All
right. So there's a bonus question. If anybody has changed change their opinion or even slightly change. As I said, I haven't jumped the fence or I'm sitting on the fence yet, but I am leaning on the fence. There are some good things to this data, and as people have pointed out, it needs to be used. Well, it needs to be used at the right time, and it needs to be used effectively. And it's data that has to go to people who will use it effectively.
I think it just comes down again, and I know I started with this, and maybe it's just showing how ignorant I am, but I do think that it is the purpose behind the test. If a test is politically motivated, and it's there to judge not really the student, but it's there to judge teacher performance, it's there to judge system performance, it's there to judge in a critical way, and be paired with funding and all that sort of stuff. They are massive red flags that I think, as an educator, we need to really raise our eyebrows and question why are we going with the flow here. But if the purpose of the test, whether it's a standardized test, whether it's a self-assessment tool, whether it's peer assessment, whether it's teacher anecdotal records and discussion and conversation with the child, if the purpose is to find out where your child in your class is at, where the child's needs are, and how you can better help that child, then I think it's a win. So it's the purpose of the initial, why am I doing this test? Why am I going through with this assessment? That's the real question we need to ask.
That's it, the why. It's almost like the why now that we need to know when we are doing anything. And Brett, I'd have to say, I think you've. A lot of people are saying not quite. Their opinions have not quite changed, but if anything, they feel like they are more knowledgeable and more aware of other tests, and they know more about where they do stand. And people have learnt, which is always our goal with Aussie Ed. So really great to see. Thank you everyone so much. And people said that their opinion has been reinforced, which is also a good thing. So thank you everyone. Thanks for the support and the quick shout outs about how we're sounding, how we're looking and everything. So thank you for that. Yeah. Again, if this was an effective thing, sorry to the Aussie Ed team, but this might be a way in the future. But we have hopefully reached a wider audience, and we'll continue to reach the audience as this hangout will be available to be listened to. I would encourage the listening part. Listen to it while you go through the storify of tonight's chat. I think that'll work hand in hand. Great. Don't you think, Brett?
I think that would be a lovely idea, and I know that you're about to jump on that storify whenever, as soon as we hang up from this conversation. I'll do my little bit too. I might even make sure that we have a link to this on our blog, and we use this as a video blog. And if you are brave enough to watch the whole 60 minutes of this chat and go right through now, please tweet Maggie and I, and we'll have to work out some special way of rewarding you if you got all the way to this point listening to us still and didn't just revert back to the old Twitter thing. And to be honest with you, we would really welcome feedback about how this particular forum has gone. Do you like this style? Was it worthwhile? It was very, very difficult. This is the first time I've actually been able to look at Maggie and myself talk. I've minimised the tweet deck for the moment. But I have not been able to see. It's been very hard having a conversation with someone that you haven't actually looked at. So
no, yeah, that's what you look like.
I
yeah, trying to read and tweet and talk about what we're reading and tweeting at the same time. But I still managed to get all the questions out on time, which was probably my main goal.
You did a very good job. I would have struggled with that. All right, we want to hang up now. Thank you very, very much, Maggie, for leading us as we try to.
Yes, very passionate. This was my moonshot from my Google Teacher Academy. So any people who attended that, this is my moonshot in action. Just, how can we collaborate with educational leaders to make our students realise what they're capable of? It's along those lines.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's always good to reward those successes as we go along, moving along those moonshots. And talking of Google Teacher Academy, if you don't know much about it, you should Google it, funnily enough, and find out a little bit more. And next time it comes around in a city near you, because it is a global concept, next time it comes around in a city near you, and see if you can get in, because it was certainly worth the experience.
Definitely. Not just about what Google do and what Google are. The real focus was pedagogy and learning, teaching and learning, and we definitely did learn a lot from the experience.
All right. Okay, might become
Thank
the
you
Hang Up
again.
and Broadcast now.
I'm storifying right now.
You storify. I'll post this on our blog, and I'll see you on our debrief hangout shortly. Bye, Maggie. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.